Today on the Mark with yours truly, Mark Carman, a special visit from Bears public address announcer Jim Riebrandt, who is retiring at the end of the season, a season that will see the Chicago Bears out of the playoffs. But Jim should have been in the playoffs and is a Hall of Famer. Also, Ethan Blumenthal, Mitchell Trubisky, movies, comedies, dramas, somehow they are all intertwined. We will explain. On the Mark with yours truly, Mark Carman, starts right now. Jim Riebrandt started with the Bears in 1979. I loved him then. I love him now. The man, you, Jim, have been incredible. Sports fans in Chicago, Bears fans, have absolutely loved the soundtrack of your games at Soldier Field, the old Soldier Field, the new Soldier Field, the spaceship, wherever it's been. They have loved you. Jim, you've been a credit to Chicago. We appreciate you taking time to be on the Mark. Congratulations on just a phenomenal career. We just got out of a timeout. Jim, you're supposed to say
on the field.
Jim Riebrandt, the public address announcer for your Chicago Bears and the DePaul Blue Demons. And the news came out a little bit ago, not a little bit ago, being the last month or so, that Jim is retiring at the end of the year, started with the Bears all the way back in the late 70s, and so I guess 40 years is enough. Jim, you're going to be missed, number one, before we get into your journey. Thank you for everything you've done for Chicago sports fans. You're a straight-up beloved figure in the city.
Oh, thanks. That's really kind. I've had so much fun doing the games, the interaction with the crowd, the buying into my shtick, if you will. It was fun from the first game, and I got 3 more games to go, and I hope the fun continues. I know it will.
Maybe you can do one more, Jim. Let's dream up a playoff game, although it's a little dicey, dicey right now.
More than awesome.
Yeah, no question. So how did you fall into this gig back in 1979? Let's go all the way back.
I started my PA career with the DePaul Blue Demons men's basketball team in the 77-78 season. And that year they went to the Elite Eight and lost to Notre Dame when Dave Corzine was injured. So the next year, Mark Aguirre came along, and they made it to the Final Four and lost to Larry Bird, which set up the game that gave college basketball a boost beyond all others, the Indiana State-Michigan State game. So at the end of that season, a friend of mine who was one of my clients was a car dealer who had, like many car dealers, a relationship with the Bears. In exchange for tickets, they would lend a car to a coach or a member of the staff. And his guy was Jim Finks, the Bears general manager. So at this gentleman's suggestion, I wrote a blind letter to Jim Finks saying, I don't know if you're looking to replace the PA man, but in my last 2 years here at DePaul, they're 28-0, and they made the Final Four. Well, as luck would have it, I received a letter from Ted Harris, who was the Bears' pro equivalent of a sports information director, and he said, we're not looking to replace our PA guy, who was Chet Kopic, but we are looking to have a backup. And so the start of the journey was initiated by writing a letter.
I forgot that Chet Kopic was the public address announcer for the Chicago Bears. I think Chet Kopic might come back from the grave right now and hit me over the head for saying that. Love you, Chet. But that's a good memory right there, that Chester had that spot. And then so you learned a little bit, or at least hung around Chet, I guess. Although maybe when you're the backup, you don't necessarily hang with him. But, I mean, Chet was in that press box for years, so you two had to have developed a relationship.
For sure. And Chet, he was fine with me. There were 2 spotters in the booth, and there was room for me to stand. So I stood behind Chet in that first year, and I learned a lot. He had a sense of the game. He had terrific timing. He was a little bombastic at times, which lent a little local color, and he had the classic Chicago voice, the Bears. That staccato, rhythmical approach, and he was very entertaining, and he was an infectious kind of guy. And when I was lucky enough to start full-time in 82, part of the concept of what I did was an offshoot of sitting behind Chet.
And Chet left because the Bears wanted you, or because he was doing more TV at the time?
He used to commute in 79. He was a sports anchor on WISH TV in Indianapolis. And he had famous run-ins with Bob Knight. And Chet would drive on the game days all the way from Indianapolis to Chicago to do the game, and then would leave thereafter. And he was pretty well assured of getting a job up in Chicago. And at the end of the 79 season, he hooked up on WMAQ TV. In the meantime, there was another gentleman who the Bears were looking at who moved in to do the games in 80, 81. His name was Lynn Thornton, and he had worked out of South Bend and had a relationship with Ted Harris, the Bears sports guy from his Notre Dame days. When Lynn couldn't do it, I got a call in the spring of 82 from Bill McGrain, who was Jim Finks' right-hand man, and said, literally, kid, you got the chance, don't blow it. And my first regular season game was against the New Orleans Saints. And if you recall, that was the first of two major strike seasons in the NFL, 82 and 87.
Yeah.
And there was, before the game, the Bears had lost the road opener to the Lions. And after the national anthem, there was a solidarity handshake between the New Orleans Saints and the Bears. And Coach Ditka went ballistic on the sidelines because he didn't think it was appropriate to shake hands before a game, especially for the reasons, etc. So instead of having a full slate of 8 games, there was the strike the day after the game, and I only got to do 3 games the first year. But I got to tell you, the interest and the excitement and the momentum of, sitting in the booth for 3 seasons and then getting that call, and, as Wayne Larrivee used to say, the dream became reality.
You named a bunch of stuff there, Jim. I want to go back to, first off, just about the timing. I think one of the keys to being a good PA guy, and, I tried my hand at it at Northern Illinois back in 99, 2000. They let me do some Northern Illinois football and volleyball and a little bit of basketball. But you have to know the game. You have to feel it. There's a pacing to it that's essential. And that's why I think you got that, which was clearly why Bears fans love you. And Tommy Edwards, who just retired from the Bulls, certainly had that. Harvey Wittenberg over the Blackhawks had it big time. There's just something to it, just where you really just know, you have to know the game, feel it, and it's almost like you're a fan in the seat, right?
Well, that's the one thing that I always wanted to connote without going over the line, that above all, I was a Bears fan. And the ups and downs of the game and the inflection in my voice. When I first started, Jim Finks, the Bears general manager, took me aside. His booth was right next to the PA booth. We were in a Quonset hut, literally, on top of the old press box at Soldier Field. And he said, always remember, keep respect to the visiting team. Do what you can to be what you think you should be, but never be disrespectful to the other team. But then the footnote was, I don't want you using the first names of any of the Bears players. And that was sort of perplexing to me. And I didn't know if maybe he thought the running backs would get first names, but the tacklers wouldn't. And he wanted to keep everyone on the same plane. I really don't know. But he left a couple years after I started. Then on my own, I start using first names. But like you said, you really have to understand the ebb and flow of the game. And at certain points, certain plays are more important than others. And to get the crowd into the game, you feel it. And as I mentioned, Chet had that infectious way where you just know you give it a little extra or a little different intonation in your voice or a different inflection. And I think you sort of, without, it's not meant to be boastful, you sort of either have it or you don't. I don't think you can learn it. You just have to feel it.
Yeah.
And it's part of it.
Third and one. Like there's,
That's right.
you know,
That's right.
come on, man.
Yeah.
You damn play.
Right. That Greg Miller, who was the producer next to me before the current producer, Letitia Wade, he was always nervous that I would go over the top, you know, with that third and one. There's some strict rules about when a PA announcer can talk when the visiting team has the ball. And if you know, going to the games, no music can be played when the play clock is down to 20 seconds. And I can't give any type of influence when the play clock is below 20, but I can give just the down and distance up until 15 seconds. And the game that sticks out was the 2013 last game when Rodgers hit Cobb, when Chris Conte thought they were in zone coverage, they were in man.
Ouch.
And we lost the chance to go to the playoffs. And I must have said it's 4th and 8 like 11 times. You know, 4th and 8. And Miller finally, God bless Greg, said, "Would you just relax?" But you knew, I mean, we're down to one play to beat the Packers to advance to the playoffs. And sure enough, you know, God bless Chris Conte, but Cobb there was nobody within 20 yards of him, which was just amazing.
And that moment too, Rodgers pass complete to Cobb.
Yeah. Aaron Rodgers, Cobb, 28 yards and the Packer touchdown. You know, like, Jesus.
I want to kill myself.
Right. Yes. Yeah. Up until a few years ago, I used to give the preliminary signal on the penalties, because if you watch, you can see the officials communicating either with hands or gestures what the call is before the referee gives it. So if there was a holding call against the other team and I saw the signal, preliminary signal, holding against the Lions, and the crowd would go crazy, well, the NFL officials didn't like me usurping them. So that was a rule put in that PA announcers can't give the preliminary signal.
You changed the rules. Jim Riebrandt, Bears public address announcer, with us here on 720 WGN as we celebrate one of Chicago's voices, and it's great to have you. But that's interesting. You actually made them change the rules because you were getting the crowd involved, and the officials didn't want to. Maybe if that preliminary signal is wrong, then they're going to start booing, and we could have a riot on our hands.
Yeah, thankfully, the preliminary signal at times, if it was a holding against the Bears, I wouldn't necessarily give the preliminary signal. Yeah, there's also times when it's really a close call, and I would say, you know, stop short of the first down, and they call for a measurement, or I think it's a first down for the Bears, and the referees still call out the chain gang. A couple times I had called the Bears first down, and Jeff Triplett, he's a big character, a big personality, referee called out for the chain gang. He put the stick down, and it was a first down, and I made the comment, and it's still a first down. So I was living on the edge there.
Yes.
You know, yeah, but it added some local color. It was all in good nature fun. You know, it wasn't being disrespectful, but you gotta have fun in the PA. You really do. But again, you have to have deference, though. You don't want to be the show, but you like to add to the show.
Was there any offensive lineman that you couldn't stand and holding again?
Yeah, no, I never did that. There was a couple of Bear offensive linemen about 10, 12 years ago that, I mean, oh my Lord, they were like turnstiles.
Yep.